Welcome back to Connect MKE. I'm your host, Andrea Williams. As we wrap up today's show, we'll turn our attention to a private nonprofit organization that protects the rights of people with disabilities statewide. My guest is Barbara Beckert, who serves as the director of Disability Rights Wisconsin. How are you, Barbara?
Great to be talking with you today, Andrea.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you join us. And if you would, right off the bat, tell us more about Disability Rights Wisconsin and your mission.
Happy to do that. So Disability Rights Wisconsin is the federally mandated protection and advocacy for the state of Wisconsin. We're part of a national network, so each state has an agency with a mission like ours to protect and defend the rights of people with disabilities, to address abuse and neglect, to support people in living as independently as possible, and to protect their civil rights, including voting.
Absolutely. And when we look at the Americans with Disabilities Act, it prohibits discrimination against people with disabilities in several areas, including employment, transportation, public accommodations, as well as access to state and local government programs and services. And that's just naming a few things. So needless to say, there has been a lot of back and forth politically when it comes to absentee ballots. So the Wisconsin Supreme Court recently banned the use of drop boxes outside of election clerk offices, specifically for the April spring election. So where does your organization stand when it comes to this particular debate?
Well, the lawsuit that you're referring to, Andrea, the Tigan v. Weck lawsuit, our agency, Disability Rights Wisconsin, is a party to this lawsuit because it has such significant implications for people with disabilities. So not only does the ruling in the suit from the Waukesha Circuit Court judge ban the use of drop boxes, but it also bans what we refer to as ballot return assistance. And what that means, practically speaking, is that a voter with a disability, or any voter, you or me, is no longer allowed to follow a long-standing practice in our state of having assistance from someone else, a person of their choice, with returning their absentee ballot. And this is as fundamental as being able to have someone put your ballot in the mailbox. Many people with disabilities, because of their disability, they may be unable to move their arms because of MS or muscular dystrophy or an autoimmune disease, or they may not have arms or hands. And for that reason, they may not be able to mail their own ballot, to put it in the mailbox. So having the ability to ask for assistance from another individual of their choice is fundamental to their right to vote. And we believe that that right is protected by the Americans with Disabilities Act that you referenced.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that people get so wrapped up in the political aspect of, tampering with votes and all of that, where they forget that there are people in scenarios like the ones you just described that really do depend on help in order to have their voices be heard. And that is a right to everyone who's living here in America. So you are currently accepting letters from individuals, I believe, who have been affected by this legislation. Am I correct?
Yes. On the day of the oral arguments in the lawsuit that you mentioned, because it came before the Wisconsin Supreme Court last Wednesday with oral arguments, we released a new document called Our Voices, Our Votes. And it includes the stories of voters from around the state who are impacted by these extreme new restrictions on their voting rights. And these were actually in effect for our April 5th election. So I've talked to many voters who were not able to vote, or in some cases received an accommodation from their clerk, and we're anxious to hear from more. Part of our role as voting advocates is to staff a voter hotline. So we welcome calls to our voter hotline, 844-DISVOTE, and we're eager to hear from people who are experiencing restrictions by this new barrier and to see how we can assist them.
Okay, we'll be sure to put that number up on the screen. Give it to us once again, please.
It's 844-DIS-VOTE.
Okay, so Disability Rights Wisconsin, you actually applauded Governor Tony Evers' past vetoes of bills that would have had negative impacts for individuals with disabilities in the areas of Medicaid and publicly funded education as well. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So many people, if they aren't personally impacted by disability or don't have a family member who is, may not realize how important Medicaid is to the independence of people with disabilities. I learned that in my own life when I became a mother because our son was premature and needed long-term supports. And even though we had very good private insurance, we were shocked to learn that it would not cover the services that he needed to return from the hospital to our home. And of course, everyone wants to have their child home, not stuck in a hospital or institution. We were fortunate, as so many families are, to learn about Medicaid, which covers long-term care and supports. And those are essential to people with chronic health care needs and disabilities. So the legislation that you referred to would have created many new barriers for people who rely on Medicaid. It would have required them to apply every 6 months, and the application that they received would not have had their previous information on it. They would have had to re-enter everything. And for individuals with disabilities, people may be paralyzed. They may not be able to move their hands or arms. They may have a cognitive disability. Having to reapply every 6 months when they have a long-term disability would be extremely problematic. And honestly, it was shocking to see that move forward by our legislature. Historically, Wisconsin has had a strong commitment to providing services for people with disabilities. That hasn't been a partisan issue, and it shouldn't be, because disability impacts all of us. 26% of Americans have some type of disabling condition, according to the CDC.
Yeah, and it is important to mention that you have a number of programs and services that range from victim advocacy as well as a helpline with Medicare Part D, because we know that when you get paperwork and you have to kind of make sure you're filling out things correctly in order for your coverage to be exactly what you need it to be, sometimes it can be a little confusing and hard to understand. So having a helpline that people can utilize is so very important. It's just really an example of the work that you're doing to help make a difference with people who are living with disabilities, as well as their families and their friends who care about them. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. I think this is a great time to give out your website and a phone number where people can call to get more information on anything that you've talked about today.
So the shortcut for our website is drwi.org for Disability Rights Wisconsin. And we also have an 800 number, 800-928-8778. We do provide a wide range of advocacy services, and if it's not a matter that Disability Rights Wisconsin can assist you with, we'll do our best to provide a referral. So give us a call.
Well, Barbara, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing such important information. I appreciate all that you're doing.
Thank you for the opportunity, Andrea.
Absolutely. Barbara Beckert is the Director of Disability Rights Wisconsin. You can give them a call. Again, their number is 1-800-928-8778, or you can visit their website at disabilityrightswi.org. That is going to do it for today's show. I'm your host, Andrea Williams. As always, I thank you for watching, and I do hope you'll join us again next week as we discuss the issues and introduce you to the people who are making a difference in the city where we live, work, and play. Have a great day.